another Debating Debates, Debatable episode with Nina and Kyle. I'm Nina.
I'm Kyle.
And today we're going to talk about something we both have a lot of feelings about. I just came from a tournament, so my feelings for this are extra
fresh.
strong, extra fresh and extra strong. We're going to talk about the fixation on winning. So why do you think this is important to talk about, Kyle? What's your experience with this?
Well, for me, one of my most memorable experiences at a pep talk was this time when someone said, well, my coach said, oh, just go have fun. But winning is fun, so go win so you can have fun. And like it's stuck with me because am I really having fun or am I just having fun because I'm winning? Man, so like I've always had this feeling that the moment I stop winning reliably is the moment I just fall out of love with debating. And like I've come to learn that that's not the way that I think it's supposed to be, at least personally, because it's not something that you can control. Like, you can't control how others will see you, you can't control how others will make their speeches, but what you can control is how well you speak and the things that you say. So, I personally have a lot of feelings about how much fun in debating that we ascribe to winning.
For me, it's because I guess I'm a bit more active in the circuit than Kyle is in general. And I get to see how competition and the strive to win brings out both the best and the worst in people. So I love debate. I love the fact that there's a winning aspect to it. But I also don't like what it does to people. I also don't like what it did to me at one point. So a lot of this episode will also be a bit of self-reflection as to what we've done because of wanting to win, what we see other people do.
This is therapy.
This is therapy.
It's therapy.
And basically what we think the mindset should be. Obviously, we're not ascribing that we're the experts on this, but I guess we do have a lot of experience we wish to share. So I guess...
But wasn't this a motion before? Like recently?
Yeah.
This house regrets the...
fixation on winning debates.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my motion in a recent tournament in Asia. So it was Asia Debate Open. It was in Guangzhou. And we had this in the finals. And it was a controversial motion because you don't see a lot of debates where you're forced to talk about yourself, right? And I feel like a lot of debaters were put on the spot having to defend their strive to win or defend the bad things they've done because of winning. And it was just really, really fun to watch.
Well, I think, in general, that it is so much more difficult to sort of examine yourself than it is to examine, like, things that you can easily read about.
That's true.
Yeah, so I think that's the reason why it is so easy to get uncomfortable in those kinds of debates.
Alright, so I want to divide this sort of ranty episode into 5 parts. Basically, how does the fixation on winning affect 1, how we debate, 2, how we judge and how we train our judges, 3, how we treat our judges and score them, 4, how we view other debaters and what the debate community now looks like because of this culture of competition, and lastly, how we treat ourselves, which I think is kind of important because...
like a mental health sort of angle.
Yeah, it's so easy for people to burn out and get tired of debating because we fixate so much on winning. So, I guess for the first one, winning in terms of how it affects debate is pretty obvious, I guess. Like, even our previous episode is
using false matter in order to win, or just making things up, making it seem logical in order to win.
Yeah, so that's a testament to what wanting to win has forced us to do. It's also led to people using personal attacks sometimes in rounds. It's also led to, in certain times, behavior being undesirable. People actively trying to intimidate new members or newcomers to debate.
Oh yeah, like laughing at your opponents, like to psych them out or something.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I just like to talk about a little bit myself here because I do laugh a lot during debates, but I never ever laugh at other people. I only laugh because I'm having fun, and I think some things that they say are amusing, but not because I think they're wrong. It's just that, like, it reminds me of something funny that I once thought about. So, and I'm bringing this up because lots of people do it intentionally, and I have been accused of doing it intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
but it's also led to such a weird way of training for debate. So, like, I've heard some people teach their students how to actively intimidate others, how to psych others out. I've also taught them, and I didn't teach them. I've also heard how others would teach others about the politics of debating, like how to build clout, for example. And personally, I've done my fair share of clout building in a way, like posting on social media, hyping my team up.
But that's also because you just wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, I just like hyping my team up. Like, it's fun.
Yeah.
I personally like being put in the spotlight for a little bit.
I think what I did was like a bit worse because I have told people that sometimes if you like you have to look like you're winning, and I think it is like a response to like this whole fixation on winning, where I was saying that you always have to look like you're winning, because if you don't look like you believe that you're winning, how can you expect the judge to believe that you're winning also? And I also said some things like, even if you don't have a POI, like look like you do have a POI and stand up anyway, even though you don't have a POI, just to psych out the opponent, just so that the judge knows that you're in it to win it, so like that. So I think that in some way I have perpetuated or contributed to this fixation. And right now, I'm not sure if I should be proud of that. But I do know that they asked me to give them tips on how to win. And I recognize that looking like you're winning is a big part of that. So I guess the way that I trained myself and trained other people sort of got influenced by this fixation that I also used to have on winning.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the problems in the debate community and debating in general is because of the fixation to win. But this happens like anywhere, even outside, for example, of debate tournaments, even presidential debates, for example, or even online debates. I think that it brings out the worst in people because we tend to not ever end the conversation. It's a constant attempt to one-up each other. I think debating is sort of flawed in a way because the fixation to win means that we don't try to reach a resolution or concede to things. We just want to win every possible issue. And sometimes that's not strategic, both in terms of if you really wanted to win, sometimes you have to make concessions. But the goal of debate as a whole is to come to conclusions, to come to solutions. But our sport is literally just like showing your idea and hoping it wins. You're not really as collaborative as you expect debaters to be.
Yeah, I agree.
So I guess the second part is like, how do we therefore judge or train judges? For me, I have a lot of feelings about this because my first few years in competitive debating, especially in college, were dedicated to judging. And I realized there's not a lot of judge training and there's not a lot of focus on the judge pool because a lot of people don't see judging as something you win, right? And therefore not worth giving time and dedication to. I think a recent complaint that I've seen on Twitter and have heard multiple tournaments before is that people just send their newbies as judges just to fulfill the N1 rule. So judges are seen as a means to an end, which is more teams, meaning more chances of winning. And I think that's flawed. I think judging in itself is something you need to dedicate a lot of time to.
Yeah, because like if we value like debating insofar as like you have to win in order for it to be valuable, the same can't be applied to judging. Like I believe that like a possible reason why we don't like put so much of an emphasis on judging is because like if you get to finals, the judges aren't the ones who are winning, right? So the judges aren't the ones who are winning. We just sort of rate them, we give them scores for judging, and then they can only quote-unquote win if they get into the top 10. But debaters also get that.
Yeah.
So, like, in terms of what judges can achieve, it seems like to me, there's less that they can win. There's less that they can achieve. I don't want to use the word achieve. It's more of like there are less things that they can win if they're judging.
Yeah, or there's less quote unquote pride that comes with their accomplishments, even if I think that debating or judging are equally as valuable. I think also it affects how we view judges in terms of it being a means to an end, such that people just train to judge so that they become better debaters. I say this because I have the ascendancy to, because I used to do that falsely. I think my bad mindset when I was starting was I treated judging as a means to learn how to win debates in the future. And that's why I eventually transitioned to debating. But I realized later in my judge career and early in my debate career that I don't think it was fair that I treated judging as just a stepping stone. I think career judges are amazing. We should give them more credit and we shouldn't just see them as people we have to impress so that we get the benefit of winning.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting point. That we like good judges because they make us feel good about winning or make us feel good about not winning. So even if we treat judges nicely or we appreciate judges, it always goes back to the fixation on winning debates as debaters because they satisfy our fixation regardless of whether or not we win or lose.
Okay, but that's assuming we don't actually see judging as something to win. How we train judges also gets affected. I think that we've been training them wrongly. For example, if we do believe that judging is something we win, we've been telling our judges judges how to kiss up the debaters, how to make debaters feel good, how to make sure that the losing team feels good about themselves.
Yeah, the compliment sandwich, right? You give a compliment and then you give the criticism and then you end it with another compliment.
Yeah. So I personally do that because I do see merit in a lot of the arguments that losing teams do, but I've noticed that some people just do it because their end goal is to get good scores. So the feedback they give to debaters isn't any more reflective of what the debaters need, but it's reflective of what the judge think is going to get them a high score. So even that ends up affecting how we judge. So I think both sides of judging and debating and the whole sport in general ends up becoming kind of flawed because of all of these attempts. But I'm not saying that the fixation of winning has not done anything good, of course. I think for debating, it has made people strive more. I think if we didn't win, not a lot of people would be as competitive or as active in the debate circuit as they are now.
Yeah. So I think a balance here is what is the healthy way to treat winning such that you don't lose competition, you don't lose the competitive atmosphere, but at the same time you don't become a douche, right? Or you don't do things that will be bad for your mental health or derogate other people's value just because they don't win as much as would be acceptable for a successful career.
Alright, so perfect transition since we're talking about people who've been douches. The third part is how winning and wanting to win has affected how we treat judges. I think right now it's so sad that looking at the recent tabs, so many judges get ones that I feel are undeserved or low scores that I feel are due to the fact of people's bitterness more than it is an actual criticism. So I think that the fixation on winning makes people inherently a little bit more selfish. They will grade judges low because they personally disagree and do not want to hear these people's opinions, or sometimes the worst case, people get bitter and don't want to see these judges again because they believe that they can't ever impress them.
Yeah. I think because you're so fixated on winning and you already have this justification in your head as to why you should win, then any other explanation, any other way of seeing the debate, is more likely to be seen as invalid to you. And that's a big problem because judges and their oral adjudications are more likely to be treated unfairly just because they don't cater to a person's particular personal viewpoint on the debate. And this is exactly the reason why in the judge feedback form, there are certain questions that they ask, did you agree with the decision and do you agree with the justification? Because you could personally disagree with the decision, but you could see why the justification could be valid. Yeah, so there's a reason why those two questions are separate from one another in there's a reason why those two questions are separate from one another in the feedback form.
I think it also affected how we treat judges in terms of encouraging them. I think it's sad that judges are afraid of judging the top rooms now because they know they have a bigger chance of messing up or getting a low score because people in the top room are usually the ones who are most competitive.
Oh yeah, that is extremely sad.
I think that as a judge, I look forward to judging really good rooms because that's where I learn a lot. That's where I get to see really good debaters. That's where I get the privilege of being able to decide and weigh their ideas. But right now, I think that being put, for example, in a top room or even a bubble room becomes a curse.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I do feel that because I have been put in bubble rooms and I feel like I wasn't properly appreciated because
everyone just wanted to win.
Yeah. So I was thinking I did tell a judge before that if you're in a bubble room, the best thing to do would be to split. Yeah, I have told someone that.
Oh no.
And my justification for that was that if you split, then you're not going to be offending the winning team because the winning team eventually won the debate anyway. So they're not going to give you a low score because of that. But at the same time, the losing team similarly won't be offended because actually they're gonna like you because you're the only panelist that gave them the win. And I feel so conflicted about what I just said because it feels so duplicitous. It is so much more likely that because of that, if you're forced to be in a bubble room, you're going to affect the integrity of your decision just so that it is more likely that people will like you. So my caveat whenever I say this is don't be afraid to make whatever. Don't be afraid to split either. But it feels for some, the way that they interpret it, and through no fault of their own, to be fair, is that they should aim to split so that they can cater to everyone in the round. I'm okay, fine.
Okay, so I think in general, judges are also more affected by this fixation than debaters are. I'm not saying it's not as bad for debaters. Anyway, I think it also affects, fourthly, how we view other debaters. I think the atmosphere, as much as it's good and as much as I love everyone in the debate community because we're all progressive, sometimes you can't help but have tensions with certain institutions or even certain debaters because you see them as competition as opposed to someone you can learn from. And I know healthy competition is good, but sometimes it can lead to people taking it personally or affecting, for example, friendships. I've seen a lot of friendships break down because they gave the other person a loss or because they don't agree with the same call. But in the end, I think personally, debating with good people should not be seen as like just purely competitive, but also something to learn from, something educational. I personally love being in the top room, even if I mess up a lot, is because I leave the room having learned something from my opponents. And I think that can be beneficial in two ways. Like, I think it improves my own mindset of the world and my debating, but also because of the fixation of winning,
you can use it for future rounds.
Yes, I have been able to use it for future rounds, but sometimes as well, it's become kind of bad because I sometimes deliberately watch people so I know how to beat them instead of learning from them.
Yeah, no, that's
I learned to defeat them. It's so sad, and I hate admitting it, but that's just what debating has done, you know?
But I think that's something that's common in a lot of sports, really. So like in boxing, they watch videos of their upcoming opponents fighting others. Like, oh, there's a tell here.
That's true.
Like and like sports in general. Like if you're a volleyball player, it is always recommended that you watch your like opponent in one of their games.
Yeah, but I guess
like in Haikyuu.
in debating though in specific, it becomes kind of sadder in my opinion because isn't it actively contradictory to what debating is supposed to be? Debating is supposed to be about learning more, about finding solutions for problems. But instead, aren't we actively trying to make more problems so that we have more things to win? I think it's sad.
I understand. So the last thing that you want to talk about is how this fixation affects how we treat ourselves, and this is where I think this is the most personal thing that we've ever talked about in this podcast.
Yeah,
because it
hits really close to home. So I've personally been in 8 grand finals, and I've lost 8 grand finals. I've won fewer grand finals than I've been in, and what usually happens after I lose is I spiral. I think that I doubt my worth. I end up, for example, wanting to quit debate. I end up questioning whether I'm still having fun, which I feel like right now, since I'm in a good mood, was really, really stupid of me to think. But I can't help it because I've been taught how to win and people pressure you. I mean, it's not anyone's fault, but naturally in this community, if you're UPDA, for example, or any A team, or any team actually, if you're competing and you have a shot winning and you're like, everyone has their eye on you, there is a lot of pressure you put on yourself unnecessarily. And it leads to people quitting early or taking long breaks or deliberately ending up hating the sport.
Yeah. Well, in my case, what happened to me was I've been debating for nearly a decade, yet I've never won a tournament. Well, partly because I haven't joined as many tournaments as you have, but I've never won anything. And I used to be like extremely insecure about that fact. Like, for the longest time, all I really wanted was to win a tournament, like any tournament. But I couldn't even get that. And I was like, man, am I even a good debater? Like, if I can't win anything? Yeah, so I think for even your idols, you know, they feel all these insecurities, all these anxieties because of this fixation. And I would also like to talk about people who aren't as successful. I mean, I don't personally think that I'm that successful, but people who aren't that successful, even in comparison to me, I have seen so many people who, because they don't win so much, they don't feel like, even if they debate a lot, that they're going to achieve anything. And as a result, they don't put in effort into training either. So if you're in a debate society and you've always been in the lower teams, quote unquote lower teams, I've seen so many instances where they sort of give up on trying to beat their top team or like do better because they feel like, oh, we can just rely on like our more successful debaters who win more often.
And it's sad. I think it's personally sad how I've seen it manifest in all levels, regardless of skill. I think the fixation of winning has just become rather crippling for others. The solution here though is to change that. I think at first Kyle and I were very destructive about our wanting to win, but we managed to change that upon our like third tournament because we realized like if we kept going, we'd drown ourselves in alcohol eventually. But we started enjoying debate even if we weren't winning because we decided that in our attempt to win, we're going to enjoy all the progress we've made getting there. So we created this hashtag and this mantra, like hashtag stronger than yesterday. And that's how we survive, even losing. We feel like we've already won because we've become better versions of debaters compared to yesterday. And I feel like that's one healthy way to go about the fixation of winning. Like, use the winning to better yourself as opposed to treating winning as an end goal in itself.
Yes, I agree. The reason why we started the hashtag stronger than yesterday thing was because we just ended up realizing that it was more worth it to have fun debating for the sake of debating and having fun there, as opposed to like relying on things that you can't control. So I think it's like a very positive message, because regardless of all the lack of magic that you were given, like the very bad hands that were like given to you, there is always a way to find something positive in it, that like you can be proud of yourself for giving a speech like this. Even if you might not win, you can spend an entire decade debating and you might not win anything, but because you know that you've become a much smarter person compared to your 11-year-old self when you started, then it's something that's good.
Yeah.
You are a winner even if you don't win debates.
For example, if it's really bad, it's not bad to take a break, but I think it's good to reassess why you continue debating. If you're the type who just continues debating because you really desperately want to win, then I think it's about time to consider, like breaking away from the sport if it's no longer becoming healthy for yourself. I think I've reached that point multiple times, but I've always come back because I've taught myself to look for other things to look forward to. And I think that's one of the reasons why Kyle and I also started this podcast. We have accepted that we might not always win, but we might help others win. Or if not win, at least we want everyone to feel like winners because they're constantly learning something along the way.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like this episode
wholesome.
is very
How
therapeutic. Yeah.
Hey, in sync.
Okay, so I think the reason why we brought this up isn't just because of our personal qualms, but I personally feel that the debate community as a whole suffers because of this excessive fixation. I think there's a way to do it in moderation. I think winning is great. I think striving to win is amazing. But if you feel like it's damaging to yourself, others, and even your own teammates and your institution mates, then I think you should actively tone it down and reassess why you do this. If you can't find a reason to stay, then I think it might be better for you to take a break and maybe find another sport that will be less quote-unquote toxic for your life.
I remember, I want to end it. I remember this saying from Ender's Game, when he just won a war by killing so many people, and then he was crying, and then the general was asking him, like, what's your problem? We won. And then he said, the way that we win matters. The way that we win. The way that we fixate on winning matters. The way that we win in debates matter. The way that we treat winning matters.
Alright, I think that's a good note to end on. I don't want this to be a downer episode. I think this is just another episode to keep people in check. Another episode as well to talk and kind of rant about what we've been seeing and experiencing personally. And I hope everyone also remembers that how you win matters, how you get there matters. And if you're just treating winning like the only valuable thing in debate, then you have to realize it's not. That's it. Thanks for listening. We'll hopefully we'll go back to teaching you how to win debates in the next episode.
Yeah.
For now, we're just gonna like give you a reality check that there's more to life than winning. Alright, so that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and for being patient with our erratic upload schedule. We'll try to be as consistent as we can be. No promises, but we will actively try. So that's it. Signing out. I'm Nina. Thanks for listening.
I'm Kyle. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.